Hello everyone, I'm Sahar Niknam, a PhD student at Luxembourg University, and I'm presenting our work on monitoring time perception in virtual reality. For an immersive experience, virtual environments should sense and respond to user state. User state can be physical, like users' position and movements, which can be easily tracked with basic motion sensors, such as optical tracking or IMUs. We also have physiological state like body temperature or heart rate. These signals are also very easy to measure using wearable biosensors. But at a higher level, we have psychological states such as emotions or cognitive engagement, which are more challenging to measure and monitor. Traditionally, we measure these states with self-report and offline questionnaires. This type of measurement is subjective, often inaccurate, and more importantly, we can't integrate them into an online monitoring loop like an adaptive virtual environment. To have objective and real-time measures of psychological conditions, we try to map them to one or more physiological signals. For example, we use pupil dilation to estimate cognitive load, or we know that a combination of skin temperature and heart rate provides a metric for stress. This study focuses on the perception of time as a psychological state, which could be monitored and modulated in virtual environments. We consider time perception a psychological state because it is an internal and subjective experience which also strongly links to other psychological conditions such as boredom and stress. And if we can measure time perception, we can also effectively modulate it in virtual environments to enhance well-being and boost productivity. But to which physiological marker can we map time perception state? We decided to use a neuroimaging technique, and among all possible options, we picked EEG since it is the most affordable and portable with simple setup, and yet one of the highest in temporal resolutions. So we designed a virtual reality experiment. We exposed participants to a diverse set of stimuli that are proven to modulate time perception. We used the Unicorn Hybrid Black 8-channel headset to record participants' EEG signals, which participants wore under an HTC Vive Pro Eye VR headset. And we asked them to estimate the duration of their exposure to a stimuli using a slider designed with lip motion controller for hand tracking. We used 5 time perception modulators in 2 sensory modalities, vision and auditory, as well as a cognitive modulator and a control condition. The first modulator was affect, for which we implemented 4 emotional modes: positive valence and high arousal, positive valence and low arousal, negative valence and low arousal. We dropped negative and high arousal after getting negative feedback from participants during the pilot tests. And finally, neutral. For each mode, we presented a collage of 4 pictures selected from 2 image data sets, GAPE and NAPS. And you can see the average values of valence and arousal for each mode as a percentage here, but we can't show the actual pictures we used since we don't have publication permission. The next time perception modulator was cognitive load. For this modulator, participants were asked to count the number of red balls they saw. In the low mode, there are only red balls in the scene, so it is a simple counting task. In the medium mode, we had them in 2 colors. And in the high mode, we also had red spheroids, adding both shape and color differentiation on top of counting task. Then we had oddball modulator, for which we implemented 3 modes. The first mode, no oddball. Then an oddball. One cube has a darker shade, but the oddness is still contextually relevant as the cube has the same color, same movement. And then the irrelevant mode. There is an oddball, a static cube in red, and its inconsistency is so salient that makes it contextually irrelevant. The other modulator we used was expectation, which we implemented with 2 modes. First a slow progress bar and then a fast one. The idea of the magnitude modulator is that the more is always perceived the longer. It could be brighter, faster, bigger, etc. For this modulator, we switched to the auditory modality. We used an audio recording of Barack Obama's speech at 2009 Correspondents' Dinner. We played a short clip from the beginning of the speech once, with no change.
I have to confess I really did not want to be here tonight.
Then at half the original sampling rate.
I have to confess I really did not want to be here tonight.
And once with double sampling rate.
I confess I really did not want to be here tonight.
And finally, the control condition, which was a black empty scene. So in total, we had 15 modes. We presented each one 3 times for 2, 4, and 6 seconds, except for the oddball modes. They were presented only once for 4 seconds to save the novelty effect, and this results in 42 different events. Recorded EEG signals during participants' exposure to stimuli and their estimations of duration. And we collected data from 33 participants, 42 events each. We ended up with a data set of 1,386 EEG samples, which we labeled them as overestimation when participants estimated the duration longer and underestimation when they estimated it shorter. And we defined an estimation as correct when it was within a 0.1 second margin of error. We used 3 methods to analyze recorded EEG signals. EEG signals are recorded as time series of microvolt values, and the basic analysis is converting these signals into the frequency domain to identify which frequency bands are more pronounced. We did that for each class of time perception states in our data by averaging over individuals and events. We had 2-second events in our experiment, which is a very short time for brain to form responses to some specific stimuli. Therefore, to check the consistency of the time perception signatures among different duration groups, we also conducted a time frequency analysis to observe how brain waves evolve over time. And finally, to ensure these patterns were statistically significant, we calculated the signal-to-noise ratio across different frequency bands for the 3 time perception states for every participant. Then we tested differences of bands activities among the 3 states using ANOVA and post-hoc t-tests. And here are the results. After averaging over all overestimation samples, we observed higher activity in lower frequencies, gradually diminishing as we move towards higher frequencies. For correct estimation state, the signature is very similar to the overestimation, except for a peak in the mid-range frequencies. And for underestimation, we have a sharp contrast with higher activity in higher frequencies and an almost absence of activity in lower bands. As you see, all 3 time perception states stands out with a distinct signature in frequency domain. Then we check the patterns for each duration group. Distinction between the patterns are less clear, especially between the over and correct estimation, and especially for 2-second events. So to further investigate the comparability of time perception signature in these 3 duration groups, we conducted a time frequency analysis on 6-second events. And now if we compare these 2 sets of plots, we can see a remarkable match between time perception signatures in the first 2 and 4 seconds of 6-second events with the power spectrum plots of 2 and 4-second events, meaning that the signatures are consistent among duration groups, but they are less pronounced because they evolve over the first few seconds. And finally, ANOVA results indicate significant differences in 5 out of 6 frequency bands, and following ad hoc t-tests show that overestimation and underestimation states have significantly different activity across all these 5 bands. Correct estimation differ from underestimations in 3 bands, and overestimation and correct estimation signatures are distinguished by 1 frequency band. In conclusion, this study shows that EEG can be used as an objective measure of time perception state, and we found clear signatures corresponding to overestimation, correct estimation, and underestimation states. And the cherry on top, these signatures support the attention allocation model of time perception. According to this model, time perception competes for attentional resources against other cognitive processes. Of course, the brain's timing mechanism is not a high priority, so when we are cognitively engaged, we can afford to pay attention to the passage of time, hence underestimation. And that's what exactly we observed, high frequency activity on underestimation state, which is an indication of high cognitive engagement. In contrast, during overestimated events, we observed low frequency activity, which is a sign of drowsiness and a drop in cognitive engagement, leaving all attentional resources available for the brain to focus excessively on the passage of time. And in correct estimation state, we see a peak in mid-range frequencies, which is usually an indication of a mindful relaxation state, meaning that the brain is alert and focused, yet not lost in thought, allowing us to fully observe the present moment and accurately estimate a duration. Thank you very much for your attention, and I also want to thank my co-authors in this work, Saravanakumar, Duraisamy, Botev, and Leiva.